Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos and welcome to my guide for gearing up alts or fresh characters, returning characters here in the middle of War Within Season 2. I'm going to try and split these tips up or let you know at the start of them whether this applies to only alts if you've already been playing a lot this season, or if you're returning from last season, or if you're starting up WoW for the first time right now. In which case, a lot of these tips aren't going to work for you. A lot of these are like catch-up systems that are in the game to help people on future characters. So let's start off with, I think, the one that is the best bang for your buck that the fewest people I surveyed, which by surveyed I mean when my guildies are trying to make new characters, the thing that they don't do. This is Sir Finley Murgleton here, and he sells for Undercoin a bunch of stuff. You can buy Wave Scramblers. So some of this stuff is gated behind the Delve journey, the Delve Battle Pass. So you know if you haven't gotten to these points, you can't buy the coffer keys, for instance, until you get here. But once you get to this spot on the Delve Battle Pass, you can purchase Warbound Veteran 1 out of 8 equipment, which is actually a buff from last season. Last season, this was only Adventurer track gear that you could buy from Sir Finley. But here, if you scroll to the later pages, you can buy these for fairly cheap amounts of undercoins, Warbound 623s, which upgrade all the way up to 645s. So if you've gotten this far into your Delve track, this is a pretty good way to start off a new character using undercoins. Now, undercoins aren't Warbound transferable, but these pieces are. And the undercoin's been weird. They've been kind of flickering back and forth between being Warbound transferable and not a couple times over the past few months. So they may at some point in the future be Warbound transferable again. But even if they're not, you can just go on whichever characters have them and purchase these items and then send them to your alts. You may also want to send over a Wave Scrambler, and that will let you then summon the Nemesis in the Delves and get a free map from that for your delving. If you're a delver, you know, that's the sort of thing that will give you a decent chunk of gear, especially if you can do it at the higher level delves. But even if not, even if you've just got a few spare undercoins rolling around, you've done a few delves, getting the Delver's Journey up to this point requires a lot of delves if you want to do it all at once. But if you do just one delve a week, your first delve per week gives you a big chunk of Delver's Journey progress. So yeah, getting up to here, if you're close, you can maybe get here and then get this veteran track gear. Now, if delving's not for you, or you don't have enough undercoins, one thing, or you want your 2 embellishment pieces, you can also purchase Enchanted Weathered Undermine Crests. Now, this costs you 30 Weathered Undermine Crests, but you can get these from a lot of sources. You can get a bunch of these on a new character pretty easily, from the Outdoor World, from LFR, from Heroic Dungeons, which not a lot of people do, from low-tier delves. There's also a bunch that you can just get from one-time Renown turn-ins, which are account-wide. So if you make a new character, especially if it hasn't played last season, and you're Renown 20 with a bunch of the Renowns, you can go and just turn in a bunch of rewards with each of the Renown vendors at all of the faction places, get a bunch of Weathered and Carved Crests. You can actually downrank your Carved Crests into Weathered Crests as well. They might be more useful for you to buy more of these Enchanted Weathered Crests. And you can start yourself off with a full set of 629 crafted gear, including 2 embellished items, by using this as an optional reagent alongside the recipes for the rare blue equipment this expansion. So this can be another very good way to get started off with your initial gear. Now, I have many more tips, such as don't forget to transmog your guy every time you get some new items, or else you'll end up looking like this. But before then, we have the video's sponsor to thank for making this video and many others possible. This day's video, is brought to you by Boot.dev. Boot.dev has sponsored a bunch of videos of mine now, and I'm very glad to continue to be sponsored by them for a video every so often, because this is a great place to go if you want to learn not just how to gear up a fresh new character in WoW, but get a fresh new skill for yourself, such as learning how to code. They've got a site. You can start off with a demo and just get going. You know, for instance, no spoiler. Here's the spoiler for the answer for this one. We turn the plus into a minus, I think. Yeah, okay, that was right. And you can learn from there how to get much deeper into coding, not just Python, but other stuff as well. And you can learn how to get a potentially very valuable skill in a pretty fun way. They have an active Discord community. They have kind of gamified, as you saw there. I got XP and stuff for doing that one. Not all the XP is as easy to get as the first few from the demo there, but it's a way to keep it entertaining while you are learning potentially a very valuable skill, especially if you can get good at it. It's the kind of thing as well that if you want to spend a lot of time playing World of Warcraft, that can be a good skill to have as well. A lot of overlap between software developers and the beautiful combo of having time sitting at your computer and also making a lot of money. That is one of the best ways to do that. So if you're interested, Boot.dev, check them out. Use my code. You got to use my code. Buy the year, and use my code while you're buying the year. Thanks so much to them for sponsoring this and many of my other videos. Now, on to the next tip. So next tip is a fairly basic one, but it's just Warbound gear, of course, is extremely good. You should check if you have Warbound gear. It's very easy to accidentally leave some in your bags. I have an add-on called Better Bags, and I've made a filter called Woo that puts all my Warbound gear, and I can find it on all my characters. And I actually have a weak aura as well that I asked on Twitter and somebody made that will flash bank your Warbound gear or bank your Wooey gear whenever I log in on Dornegal and I have any in my bags. Let me see if I can trigger it by flying in and out of the city here. But either way, just make sure you don't have any Warbound gear that's, not doing anything when you make a new character that could use it. In general, my rule of thumb is if you might be able to, there you can see the bank your Wooies thing that popped up briefly in the middle of my screen. And it pops up when I relog as well. So if you want that, I'll put that in the description as well. And then you can put all those in your Warbound bank. You can see here, I have a bunch of Wooey gear from last season. I need to get rid of all this stuff because I'm not going to use that anymore. But this season, you can get all the way up to Hero Track Wooey gear if you're clearing Mythic. But even if you're not, getting Champion Track, Veteran Track Wooey gear can be very nice for a fresh new character. And you just put it all in your Warbound bank and then come check it out later when you're making a fresh new character. Now, there is one guaranteed source of Warbound gear that is actually quite strong, a Warbound Champion Track of gear, which comes from the World Boss, the main event. So the first time you do this on your account each week, you are guaranteed to get a Warbound Champion Track piece. So you should do that, even if you don't have your alt yet, but you think, okay, maybe in a month I want to have an alt, just kill this thing every week until then, and you'll have 4 Warbound pieces. Maybe there'll be some duplicates. Maybe they won't be the right armor type, but at least it is a good way to try and get those items that you will then get good value out of on your alts. So that's the next tip, Warbound gear. Our next tip is Dinars. Now, Dinars have gotten a lot of videos made about them and stuff. I've got a video about how to use them and what to buy with them for your mains. But if you're using them on an alt, so the way this works is you get the quest from this little bounty thing, you kill 4 raid bosses and or 4 M+ boss runs, or mix and match between the two of them, and then you will get, the first time you complete this, you'll get 3 Puzzling Cartel chips, and then the next times you do it each week after, you'll get 1 each, and you can get up to 9 total on your character's lifetime, and you can then purchase Hero Track versions of the raid weapons, the very rare items from the raid, and the raid trinkets, and M+ trinkets as well. So you have a long list of things you can potentially purchase for this. Now, if you want to get access to the Myth Track versions of these things, that'll require killing the raid bosses on Mythic, or getting all the 12s timed for the M+ items. That's a pretty hard ask, but on a fresh alt, you may have no designs of ever doing that, in which case, you can just complete this quest. You can complete it with LFR bosses, and then start yourself off with your best in slot, whatever the best thing from the raid is for you. You get a very rare item. You could get yourself a Heroic Jaster Diamond, a Heroic Eye of Kazan, Heroic House of Cards, something like that. So this is actually a very strong way to catch up a new character, assuming you don't care about the fact that you are using a limited resource that will then prevent you from using it on a Myth Track item further down the line, which, depending on the kind of character, that might be something that you will feel bad about. But for a lot of people, you're never planning on killing Mythic raid bosses on for fun alt anyways, in which case, just buy the Hero Track version, and it's a huge jump up from the 618 questing green or whatever that you happen to have on that character. All right, our next tip is just Circe's Circlet. So this was introduced with patch 11.0.7, and it is still either BIS or competitive for pretty much every spec in the game. So if you have a fresh alt, this thing will be good for you up until the point of generally getting your second Myth Track ring with good stats. For some characters, it will be good even beyond then. For some characters, once you get 2 good Hero Track rings, you might be able to replace it. But for a lot of characters, this thing is another one where if it's an alt, this thing can live on your character for the entire duration of whatever you're doing with it on the season. Now, it does take a little bit of work to get it and to upgrade it to 658. It does take some Siren Isle content, although there is an exploit available if you there's some, I haven't done it personally, but it's been in the game now for months. So if you really don't want to do the work, there is some, it's like there's some party sync exploit that you can do. Yeah, you didn't hear that from me, but I've heard rumblings of people doing that. I personally didn't do that because I was just doing it on all my characters while it was current. But if I was making an alt, I would be very tempted right now to learn more about that. But this isn't a channel where you'll ever hear about exploits or anything like that. So you didn't hear that from me. You didn't hear that from me, Blizzard. If you're watching this, I didn't say that either. So yeah, either way. Cyrce Circlet, a good thing to get. Now, speaking of Cyrce Circlet, I'm making this video before 11.1.7 comes out, but I feel like it's worth mentioning that 11.1.7 is going to come out on June the 17th for North America is the current planned date, I believe. And that is going to come with a similar to Cyrce Circlet item from Overcharged Delves, which is going to be in the belt slot. So don't craft belts. Don't spend a lot of money on BOE belts, anything like that. If you are, especially as we're getting closer to that date, whenever you're watching this, you will be able to get a very strong belt, potentially. Maybe not as strong as Cyrce Circlet for its item level, but it's planning to go all the way up to like eye level 700 or something. And Blizzard usually doesn't like making items like that be a lot weaker than their eye level would suggest. They don't mind missing in the other direction, but they usually do mind if they make something that's eye level 700 and it's worse than 680 stuff. So right now it does look like it might be that way for some classes. So we'll see. I don't know. It's the classic situation of who knows what this thing is actually going to be like when it comes out. But my guess is it will be strong enough to be your belt. So don't craft into belt. Don't buy belts, anything like that. Now, speaking of buying stuff, next tip, the auction house, which you may not have a auction house mount, but whether you buy this from the auction house in Dornegal or in the city or from your mount, there are a lot of BOEs that you can pick up that might be reasonably cheap and effective for your character. Now, this depends on how much gold you have, but if you don't want to do all the time-intensive stuff, and this is one of those rare tips that can actually help you, even if you miss this whole expansion, you can come in and purchase yourself the LFR versions, right? These 629, or no, these are last season BOEs. And then there's the new ones here that you can get, champion track BOEs for, a couple 100,000 gold, potentially, depending on the slot that it's in. So you can take a quick look here, and, potentially some of these are a compelling, price point for you. This, hero track at 280K. Again, depends on the kind of character that you care about, whether you have more gold than time, more time than gold, whatever. I usually don't buy these things on alts typically, but your mileage may vary. It's worth always remembering to check the auction house and see what the BOE slots are for your character. All right, next tip has to do with Renown. So as I previously mentioned, on a fresh character, you can potentially go and pick up all the Renown rewards from these old Renowns. Now, the crests from these rewards have been upscaled, I believe. So if you're collecting this reward now, it'll be not giving you carved Harbinger crests, but actually carved Undermine crests, which are quite good. Which are relevant for this season instead of being completely useless. So that's strong. The one thing that hasn't changed, I don't think, is you still get the Enchanted Runed Harbinger crest from these old Renowns, not Enchanted Runed Undermine crest, but from the Cartels of Undermine rep, there is a bunch of good current content stuff, including an Enchanted Runed Undermine crest, but also including the ability to purchase, you can purchase its Champion Track gloves from Renown 14, and there's also boots from Renown 7. They're just Veteran Track, but they are still purchasable, and they're purchasable with Resonance Crystals instead of with Undercoins. So if you have played already some of this patch, you might be high enough on this Renown track to go and pick up these things from the Cartels of Undermine Renown vendor. And then also, of course, getting the Enchanted Runed Crest is a big deal because then you can make a 664 crafted piece if you use the Augmentation Matrix, or 658 otherwise, with the Spark using this. So this can be very good for one of your first embellished pieces on a new character, or you can use it to just save you some runed and carved crests on upgrading eye level in a slot. Now, for Champion Track gear, there is actually one nice source of a weekly piece of Champion Track gear, which comes from the Flames Radiance events. So these fire on the hour, every hour, and you kill some stuff or whatever, get some boxes, but there's a quest, and the first time you finish it each week, you will get one of the, I don't have it on this character, but you will get a little token thing that you can then use to buy a Champion Track item in a slot of your choice from the vendor here. So this can be actually a pretty great way to get gear on a new character, especially if you have a new character that you kind of want to leave on the back burner for a few weeks. Just doing that thing once per week of doing the scenario and then getting one of those tokens will let you, kit yourself out in champion track gear. So in terms of bang for your buck, I mean, it is time gated to only do it once per week, but this is among the best ways to get deterministic champion track items in the slot of your choice. You get a bunch of crests and stuff and Valorstones from the boxes from doing the event anyways as well. So very good source of gear, the 11.1.5 Nightfall scenario. Now coming soon as well, not when the video comes out, this isn't out yet, but in the next couple of weeks, there's going to be Horrific Visions. In fact, it is next reset as the time of recording this. Horrific Visions are going to be a great source of gear as well. They're sort of similar to Delves in that, you can just do them and they might be kind of hard on a new character, especially if you're unfamiliar with your spec, you're under-geared. But they're basically going to be Delves, but giving even better reward. Like the amount of gear, you can get a bunch of hero track stuff, I think, from doing Horrific Visions. I think at least 2 hero track pieces per week from what I saw from these. So if you can do the Horrific Visions, if that sort of thing's fun for you, that might be a very good way to gear up some fresh alts as well. If not, then you can safely ignore them. There's a lot of other great sources of gear that we've already talked about and that we will continue to talk about. All right, our next tip is PvP stuff. Now, I personally don't really like PvP, but PvP is actually a pretty good way, especially with war mode. You won't see... Okay, yeah, you can get this Sparks of War quest here, and this gives you a bunch of bloody tokens. You can also get a bunch of bloody tokens just from like doing world PvP stuff. So this is one source of decent PvP gear. The other source is Conquest, which you'll get from like rated PvP, but you also get some Conquest from the Sparks of War quest. You'll get some from like opening world PvP caches. I think maybe it's just first per week, and you can get some Conquest from these weekly quests of like solo shuffle and stuff like that as well. So if you want like 1 or 2 PvP pieces, you can just do those quests and you don't have to farm a bunch of rating. And you can purchase, for the bloody tokens, which remember, you can get a hit of 1,000 for just doing that Sparks of War quest. You can buy veteran track gear. Now this is 4 out of 8 veteran track gear as well. So if you are limited on your Crests and your Valorstones, this is actually somewhat better than that Delve 1 out of 8 veteran track Warbound gear that you can purchase. And these are nice if you like verse. Usually all of these have a lot of verse on them. And they scale up to decent die level in arenas and battlegrounds too. So if you want to do more PvP, these can help get you started pretty easily. You can farm a bunch of bloody tokens by doing war mode stuff out in the open world. And then Conquest can actually purchase you champion track gear as well. And you can use it to... You can buy these lacquers, which just make things better in PvP. But you can also just buy straight up champion track pieces. Now, an interesting thing about this as well is if you buy the wrists and helmets and stuff like that, you can actually apply the prize jeweler's settings to those and get sockets too. So again, it's the kind of thing where this is not something that I really touch on my alts, but if you like PvP, that's a decent source of stuff from PvP. You can also purchase these prized equipments chests and get some Warbound PvP stuff. You do need to get up to 1,400, but then you can get Warbound PvP loot that you can send to your alts as well. So yeah, potentially another good way. If you like PvP, there's some decent alt catch-up available from there. And if you don't really like PvP, but you're bored and you want to do some war mode stuff, I recommend the Bloody Tokens, Sparks of War stuff, and you can pop on war mode, and there are groups you can join as well that will do the chests and stuff and out in war mode and get a bunch of resources from that. Now, speaking of resources, you might find yourself limited by Valorstones. Valorstones are now warbound transferable, but unfortunately the tariffs have hit here as well. So you will lose 20% of any Valorstones that you transfer from one of your characters to another. And there is still a cap as well of 2,000 per character. So if you have a fresh alt, and you have any characters that are capped at 2,000 Valorstones, maybe shift some over so that you can then be earning and not be capped on the character that is capped. And if you just need Valorstones on any of your characters, you can transfer them from your other guys as well. If you're looking for some good sources of Valorstones, if you've done some delves and you have Radiant Echoes, especially if you can do these, if you have multiples of 5 or 5 or more, you can go and do World Soul Memories, which pop up in the different zones. This icon here. And there will always be one active in Undermine, either the one up here or there's one down here as well. And that kind of alternates every day. And you can go and you can do a little 5-minute adventure. You can put in 5 Radiant Echoes, and you will get hundreds of Valorstones if you kill. Even if you don't kill much, you get 100, I think, if you just instantly leave. But it scales up as you get your World Soul score up. You can get 200, 300, 400 Valorstones from a 5-minute adventure there. So that can be a good source of Valorstones. Chet lists, if you are far enough in your Cartels of Undermine rep to be able to get Chet lists, you can get a Chet list from Chet in the upstairs of the Incontinental Hotel, and then do a couple of little, small quest-like things around Undermine, turn that thing back in, and you'll get a couple hundred Valorstones from that as well. So another great source of Valorstones. And then finally, I want to shout out LFR as well. Doing LFR is a good source of Valorstones. Raid bosses in general, they buffed Valorstones this patch from raid bosses. So LFR can get you progress towards your Dinar quest, can get you a decent amount of Valorstones, can get you a bunch of Weathered Crests, and the last 2 bosses of the raid actually drop Weathered and Carved Crests. So you can get a really good income of Crests out of doing some LFR if your eye level is high enough to queue for LFR. So I recommend that. If you are missing out on those resources, you can just get a bunch of resources at very little effort from LFR. Not to mention the gear. Veteran track gear is really not that bad, and you can get some good, strong veteran track pieces out of LFR. You can get your tier pieces. Of course, the Catalyst is here, so if you're new to this expansion, you can put in any items from this season into the Catalyzer, and they will turn into your tier set pieces. You'll have a bunch of these charges of Essence of Kadgemite at this point in the season, so you can just use this to make yourself your 4-piece as well. And I think that is it for... Oh, no, it's not. I've got one more big tip. So this is another one that might or might not be active. So check the calendar, and you're looking for Timewalking weeks. Whenever there is a Timewalking week, you can get the weekly quest to do 5 Timewalking dungeons and get a normal raid piece, which is pretty good. And then whenever there's Mythic Plus week, Mythic Dungeon week, you can also do 4 Mythic Dungeons to get 1 heroic piece from raid, which is pretty good. Delves bonus week is also pretty good. You can do some Delves and get champion track pieces out of that, I believe, as well. All of those are pretty good. In general, running Mythic 0 dungeons is really strong as well. You can get champion track pieces from those dungeons, which upgrade all the way up to 658. So that's a really good way to start off gearing a character as well. But the sleeper OP thing to do as well is whenever it is Timewalking week, if it's one of the Timewalkings that has a Timewalking raid associated with it. So like right now we're in Classic, which I don't think has a Timewalking raid associated with it. I know there was Blackwing Depths, but I think that was just the anniversary event. But when we get to Timewalking TBC, which I believe is this one, TBC Timewalking, there's Black Temple. And then the next one, Wrath Timewalking, there's Ulduar. And then the next one, which is Cataclysm Timewalking, there's the Firelands. And then I don't think there's... the Timewalking doesn't even go this far into the calendar. But I don't think there's Timewalking yet for MOP 1 yet. But so the next 3 Timewalkings, as the time of recording this video, each have a Timewalking raid associated with them. Now, not only do killing those raid bosses give you credit towards this quest, so you could kill 5 raid bosses instead of doing 5 dungeons, but also when you kill the last boss of those raids... on the Timewalking difficulty, you'll get a hero track piece from that. So that can be pretty strong, and you can actually join a skip raid. So whenever that is the season that's going on, you can go in here, you can go into raids, you can find a Timewalking raid, and usually you just search for the word skip. Right now, if you search in here, you'll find people doing skips for old raids and stuff. But during like Black Temple Timewalking, you'll find people with Illidan skip up, and sometimes they'll want tips. But often you can just spam apply to these groups and eventually one will let you in. You can say you're going to tip as well and then not tip. I never do that. I always tip, of course, because I'm incredibly wealthy in this game now. But if you're tight on gold, you can usually sneak in even in the tips group without tipping. Those people make a ton of money anyways from all the people that are rich and tip as well. And there will be ones that don't want tips either. But you can just join those groups and they just sit there queuing up for the raid. They've already killed all the bosses except the last boss. So they go in, they open the door to the last boss, all the other bosses are dead, then they zone out and make a new raid group and do it over and over again, get a bunch of gold from tips. They launch one every like 5 minutes or so, and there'll be a bunch of those groups up. And that can be a great way to get a free hero track item on your fresh characters as well. So again, looking out for those time walking weeks, whenever that's true, is a nice source of some free, easy gear. Okay, that's it for real this time. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Sign up for Boot.dev as well. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.